So good afternoon. To introduce Dr. Lakshmi Vijayakumar. She is the pioneer in suicide prevention in India. She is one of the architects to declare 10th September as World Suicide Prevention Day. She is the founder trustee of Sneha Voluntary Center for Suicide Prevention. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It is a real pleasure to be with you, and I thank Dr. Ramakrishnan for inviting me for this wonderful function. And I may be a few years his senior in the college, but he is definitely the senior in terms of the variety of services which he is offering to the people of Trichy. And hearing the Joint Commissioner of Police speech, I had to revise my speech because most of what I wanted to say, he has already spoken. And thank you, Dr. Kishore, for inviting me to be part of the South Zone EC and for your interest in suicide prevention. And it's a real privilege to be here. Without much ado, I think majority of from the chat box, I see that majority of the participants are young people and students. So maybe I'll focus on student suicide and youth suicide. It is we have about 800 suicides every year in the world. 800,000. And unfortunately, even though our National Crime Records Bureau say that about 135,000 people die in suicide in India, the global burden of diseases as well as the global health estimate of WHO rates almost about 230,000 people are dying by suicide in India every year. But the greatest tragedy for us is that majority of them are young people below the age of 30. Between the age of 15 and 29, suicide is the #1 cause for mortality. It is not road accident, it is not maternal mortality, it is not anything else. For both boys, girls, men and women, between the ages of 15 and 29, suicide is the #1 cause for mortality in our country. So when we lose a young life, it is not only a loss to the family, it is a loss to the community, it is a loss to the economy, it is a loss to our country. We are losing so many young lives. So now coming back to suicide, there is no single reason for a suicide to happen. Suicide is due to a variety of factors. We all say a lot of things have to go wrong for a suicide to happen. You have biological factors, you have psychological factors, you have social factors, you have cultural factors, sometimes you have even religious and philosophical factors. So a lot of, and if you look at the trajectory of suicide, you have biological factors, what we call as the distal factors, then we have proximal factors, then we have precipitating factors, then we have trigger factors. So when everything combines together, then the person feels that there is no other way but to die. Now there are 3 reasons why suicide prevention is possible, because it is the very nature of suicide. Suicide is a very impulsive phenomenon. Okay? Suicide is also a communication. 80% of people who die by suicide have communicated their suicidal thought to somebody. It is we who don't hear properly. And the Joint Commissioner classically brought out, majority of them are not sure. Ambivalence. The wish to live and the wish to die is like a seesaw battle with them at that point of time. And suicide is a very strong emotion. You cannot be acutely suicidal for 6 months. Okay? We have found that the maximum suicidal instinct lasts for about 2-3 weeks. So in those 2-3 weeks, if support is given, suicides can be prevented. If support is not given, suicides can happen. Because it is an impulse, if at the moment of impulse support is given, suicides are prevented. Because it is a cry for help, and if you are able to hear the communication effectively and offer emotional, empathetic listening, suicides can be prevented. Because it is an ambivalent phenomenon, if you are increasing the wish to live, suicides can be prevented. அதே மாதிரி என்ன பிரச்சனையா இருந்தாலும் எந்த சூசைடுக்கு இதுதான் காரணம்னு இல்லை, எது வேணாலும் ட்ரிகரா இருக்கலாம். ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்கும் ஒவ்வொரு வல்னரபிலிட்டி. Each of us have a vulnerability. Trigger for me may not be a trigger. Okay. For example, if somebody falls down and has a fracture and has to be bedridden for 4 months, for a 25-year-old boy, it may not be a problem because he knows that he will recover and in 4 or 5 months he'll be fine. Whereas for a 70-year-old, he's dependent, he does not know whether the bones will heal properly, whether he will be able to walk, whether he will be able to do. Vice versa. Having a fight with a wife at 70 years, he may be upset for 10 minutes. But a girlfriend leaving the boy is a huge issue. So the risk factors keep changing over life cycle. Okay, it is not static. For a student, what we have found is there are 2 things which really trigger them to suicide. முன்னாலும் தலைக்குருவி ஏற்பட்டா அது ஸ்டூடெண்டால தாங்க முடியறதில்லை. இது வந்து it may be caught copying, it may be poor marks in the notice board or fees கட்டலங்கிறது notice boardல, இல்ல ஒரு குரூப்புக்கு முன்னாடி நீங்க எல்லாரும் கேலி பண்றது, so anything, bullying, anything which induces shame causes tremendous amount of suicidal ideas in young people. The other trigger is rejection. You care for very much. நீங்க யார ரொம்ப விரும்புறீங்களோ அவங்க நீங்க வேண்டான்னு உங்களை உதறிட்டு போகும்போது ரொம்ப கஷ்டம். Rejection is all of us want to belong. In fact, Joyner in his interpersonal theory of suicide says one of the important factor is thwarted belonging. When you want to belong, when you want to do and you are prevented from doing it and you are rejected, that is a huge factor. Now, and the factor is multiplied in a young person more than in an older person. நான் வந்து ஒரு வேடிக்கையா ஒரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொல்லுவேன் இதுக்கு. Every 3-4 years, the Nobel Prize for Medicine and Physiology is decided by a group of 18 people in the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. So once in 5 years or so, they organize a conference and invite about 20-30 people so that this committee is explained about what are all the newer things which are happening, starting from genetics to everything, so that the committee is knowledgeable about what is going on in the world. Okay, it's a very nice conference meeting to go when you are invited, because without having to work for a Nobel Prize, you eat in the same table, you go into the same room, and you do everything. So I had the opportunity of attending one of the secretary of the Nobel Committee asked me, Dr. Lakshmi, answer me this question. Nobel believed in basic sciences very much. Chemistry, biology, and he liked literature. Ella ஒரு Nobel Prize வெச்சாரு. But எல்லா சயின்ஸுக்கும் the fundamental of any science is mathematics. He not, in fact, in Nobel, money should not be used to give a prize for a mathematician. Okay, that is the fundamental science for all the sciences. Why did he do that? I mean, I gave all kinds of explanation, but finally he told me this. But please remember, when he was young, Nobel loved a girl. Okay, she left him for a mathematician. So he said, mathematics will not have a Nobel Prize. So that is the power of rejection which we can feel. So for a young person, when a person whom he loves or for a person whom he cares for rejects him, it is impossible for us to pay. For an older person said, okay, there are a lot of other people who care for you, but for that person, that is a major factor. Now, if you look at youth suicide per se, actually, if we compare 1990 to 2016, in most of the countries, suicides have come down. In quite a number of countries, youth suicides have happened. Youth suicides have increased in the US, in India, and in many, many other countries, youth suicides have increased. So what is the reason why these youth suicides happen? Majority of the time, they fall into three categories. Either it is interpersonal problems which they are not able to solve, or it is academic issue related issues which they have, family issues, or amongst friends and peers. And that is a big issue which has happened. The fact is, in families, what we are witnessing now is that majority of the families have one or two children. So all the parents are thrust on these children. When I was growing up, I remember my father will not even know which class I am studying. Okay? But today my daughter knows what lunchbox my grandson's friend is bringing. You know, that's the kind of helicopter parenting which happens now. So many of our expectations are thrust on this. And on top of it, the kids now, students nowadays have to face a rapidly changing world. See, as human beings, whenever there is a stress, we adapt. We learn to adapt. And then there is a resting phase. And then another stress comes and then we adapt, and that's how we grow. But now there is no resting phase. The changes are so rapid, you have to keep. For example, about 10 years ago, a generation gap will be between 20 and 30. Now the generation gap is between 20 and 24, 24 and 30, like that. So there are huge differences of what they are exposed to and what pressures they go through now. And this rapidity of change does not allow them a resting period. So they are naturally more anxious, more stressed. The other thing is, this is a generation what I call as an instant generation. They are used to getting everything instant. Coffee, whether it is instant message or whether it is Instagram, the minute they think it is. Or career does not happen instantly. And that is a major problem for them. So when they are used to getting everything instantly, and when they are not getting what they want instantly, then there is a sense of failure, there is a sense of hopelessness. The second thing is, how do I say this? There is see, I just quote one example. Recently, I had a Korean student, and she wanted to follow her parents' footsteps and do medicine, and she would have got it. But unfortunately, just a week before her final exam, she had both typhoid and chickenpox. So her performance was not up to the mark. She got 90%, but suicide. And she was brought to me and I was talking to her, and what she said made a huge sense. She said, my father taught me how to play very well. My mother taught me how to sing well. My teachers taught me how to study well. But doctor, nobody taught me how to face a failure. So how to face a failure is what determines your success. It is not how you handle, but how you handle your failure, how you handle a crisis, how we handle this COVID crisis is what is going to determine our future. So how we handle a failure is what is important, not how we handle our crisis. The third thing which I would like to focus on is the amount of the COVID has forced many students to spend a lot of time on the computer, net, virtual, and a lot of their normal activities of going to college, playing, or going to movies together, all that is curtailed. So they are completely in front of the laptop or the mobile, and that's their only form of communication, and we must be very thankful for that. Because imagine if we don't have this, we won't be even having this webinar. So it is great. At the same time, many students are completely involved in this virtual world. So much so, they lose the real world. Okay? Equal importance need to be given to the real world. See, when you fall down, you may have 1,000 friends in Facebook or Instagram. But when you fall down, it is your friend who is walking with you who will lift you up. So give equal importance to real friends. But if you don't like something which your friend says, it's very easy for you to unfriend him or block him. Okay? But in real life, we cannot block all those people. We have to learn to exist with a variety of people. We have to learn to cope up with a variety of people. We have to learn to understand a variety of people and where they come from, which does not happen in a virtual friendship. Don't spend time with your Facebook friends or anything like that. But as much importance give to having real friends. Engage in physical activity. Our commissioner said, engage in physical activity. Because when you are joining a game, whether it is table tennis or badminton or whatever it is, you know that you will win some and you will lose some. So you will know how to handle a failure. You will know how to handle a loss. So please engage in some, you don't have to be top things, which is the expectation of everybody. I start playing cricket, I have to be like Sachin or Virat, or I have to be like Sindhu if I start playing badminton. No. Play it for enjoyment, play it for physical activity, learn to lose, learn to be friends, and that I think is extremely important. Because enough research has shown the longer you spend in the digital world, the depression and suicidality increases. But we are forced to do it now because of the current situation and because of the current expectations. So we have to learn to balance it. Finally, I would like to say, when we talk about mental health, we say a mental health is a state of well-being in which a person is able to realize his or her own potential, is able to handle the normal stressors of life, is able to work productively and usefully, and is able to contribute to the community. So what can students do to have this? Okay? Realize your own potential. Okay? But then you must have realistic expectation from yourself. If today I say, okay, if I think, okay, I want to be like P.T. Usha. So if I'm going to have that kind of expectation for myself, I'll be miserable. But if I say I'm going to keep myself fit, I am going to keep myself active, that is possible. So have realistic expectation of your capacity. Assess your capacity. Have a realistic expectation. And even if your parents and teachers push you and say, no, I want you to get 90, 95. It's okay for you to tell them, look, I am not that kind of a person who's likely to get an academy. I'll put in my hard work. Okay? But what I get is what I get. It doesn't mean that I cannot be a success in life. See, today, as Dr. Ramakrishnan said, there are 3-4 students who have died even before writing an exam. So that is the kind of confidence they have in themselves. So first, generate confidence in yourself. Self-esteem and self-confidence is the most important criteria for any student to handle life. The next is able to handle the normal stressors of life. See, COVID, when we started, terrified. We were scared. We were, but now we have learned to live with it somewhat. So we have learned to cope with it. So we can cope with stress. Just as, what shall I say? Or, stress is a part of life. So it's never going to be a situation where you're not going to have any stress at all. There may be moments when you don't have stress, but then stress will come. So you have to, as they say, flow up and down like a wave is a part of life. So take the up and the low in a measured stride. See, many people, students, when they come and ask me, I am stuck in a course which I don't want to, I didn't want to study this, my parents pushed me to do this, or I am in this kind of a job which I hate, and but I want to do, I need the money, the family needs the money, and so on. All I'm asking them is have a different twist to what you're thinking. Instead of thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up? Okay, or what do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? Change the question. How can I contribute to the society, the family, the country? What is it that I can do to contribute to the community? So even if you are in a course which you don't like, which your parents say you have to do because for the family's financial stake, or in a job which is said, don't think of it as a drudgery. See, I am contributing to my family. I am contributing to financially to the family. I am contributing to my father's happiness. So when you shift from I am stuck here into saying, what is it that I can do to contribute? We can contribute. Just think about it. Even if we have not done anything great, even if you have helped, say, immediately that day you start feeling good about yourself. Okay. So I think as a student, what we need to have faith in people around us, and most importantly, and how can this be done? This has to be done from the young age. You don't wake up one day and decide, okay, I will handle it. To be taught right from the beginning that how to solve the problems, how to solve interpersonal problems, how to regulate our emotions. As I said, it can be mindfulness, it can be meditation, it can be playing, it can be anything, but how to regulate our emotions. Don't hesitate to ask for help. Many youngsters, particularly those who are going through psychological issues, have great reluctance to ask for help. Okay? Help is available. Talk about it. Talk about your depression. Talk about your suicidal thoughts. Help will be available. As we say, suicide is often a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And when you think, when your emotions are less, when you're able to think better, there are options other than suicide will happen. I am sure many of you who have been talking to people who are suicidal, when you ask, it is not that I really want to die, but I just cannot go on living like this. Okay. So what is it? What is the little thing which will make them live? What is the little thing which can make them that life is worthwhile is important. I don't know whether Dr. Ramakrishnan has precognizance or something like that, because I was really surprised to see his slogan, because in WHO, we are rolling out by the beginning of next year a slogan called "Live Life." He says, "Love life." We have created a program with a manual for all the countries or communities on how to go about for suicide prevention, and that title is "Live." As students, if we love ourselves, love our neighbors, love our family, and ask for help, help will be available. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi Madam. You are a mentor to us, so many youngsters, and as I rightly say, you are the mother of suicide prevention in India. And I sincerely pray, and many of us, most of us, will agree to my prayer that you should get at least a Padma Vibhushan award from the government of India for your excellent work for the past 35 years, continuous efforts. We got a lot of interesting questions from you, for you, madam. Actually, I want to tell before I start this question session, right now while we were discussing, we had a call. Sir, give your number, I am suicidal. My counselor, Miss Tamil Mani, is talking to that girl. This is the success. We are going to prevent one more death. That is the message I want to communicate. Madam, Lakshmi Madam, we know you saved a lot of suicidal tendency persons. But I like to know what is your first word of comfort to withdraw the suicide attempt?
It is not the word of comfort, it is the empathetic listening, which is the first step towards suicide prevention. It is not what we say, but how we are and how we understand the person, how we understand the emotions of the person, how we are non-judgmental, non-critical, and understand what they are going through. And then by going through that, but when that person who is suicidal, see, whatever be the problem of a person who is suicidal, the feelings of the person at that end point is a sense of loneliness, helplessness, and hopelessness. So if that person at that point of time feels this person cares for me, this person understands what I'm going through, the loneliness comes down. Once the loneliness comes down, and when you have an okay, this person understands, this person cares for me, then the suicidal feelings, and then you talk, and usually the person who's suicidal is like in a pressure cooker of emotions. Come out and then open the book. The same way, allow the emotions to come out. Listen to him without your criticism, without your judgment. Allow the emotions to come. Once the emotions are out, then they are more open to suggestions. And they themselves will see, okay, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try this. As they say, it is that moment. If at that moment support is given, so many suicides can be prevented. So it is not what you say that is important, but what you are to that person in front of you, which is important.
We recently saw got the news of a psychiatrist committing suicide. Is suicide among psychiatrists more? Are they vulnerable?
Yes, all over the world we have found that suicide in psychiatrists are high. In fact, there is a very nice study done from Harvard, because there was a feeling that people who took psychiatry themselves may be psychologically vulnerable. And that's why there are more suicides in psychiatrists. So there was a nice, interesting study from Harvard Medical School where they assessed the personality of the students when they joined medicine, when they were just finishing medicine, then 5 years choosing a particular branch, and then 10 years after they have chosen the branch, and try to find out whether there was any change in the personalities or whatever it is which were, and why suicides were. There, compared to all other specialties, two specialties were at the too broad end. One was the surgeons and the other was the psychiatrists. The surgeons were impulsive, risk-taking, bold, and psychiatrists were more cerebral, introverted, thinking, a kind of not very social. So there was really no difference in terms of psychopathology. But 10 years into a profession, or 15 years into the profession, then they found that psychiatrists had more suicide. So the inference is that the more and more you see psychiatric patients, it has an impact on you. So psychiatrists have to take more care to see that they are able to have a sense of balance in their life. But the recent suicides of psychiatrists, we also should not forget the fact they are also human beings. They are also likely to have depression, schizophrenia, and all that, okay? Which may not be, visible when they join psychiatry. But over the course of because many of the people by 21, 22 are into psychiatry in our country, 23 or so. So many of these disorders come a little around 25, 26. So they could have mental health issues also. And then it becomes even more difficult for a psychiatrist to seek help for his psychological problems. So how we enable that is a big issue.
One comment, very excellent program, madam. There are 3 suicides in the last 3 days. Is it due to need or some other factors?
As I said, there is no single factor. So I won't say need is the only factor. There are a variety of factors. Because I can come back and ask, okay, why are there no suicides during the JEE? Or why are there no suicides when people are writing for civil services examination and things like that, okay? So there are a variety of reasons for that, okay? So these people have died by suicide even before they have written the exam. They don't even know how the paper is going to be, whether they are going to write well or not. They have given up hope even before they have started. It is that hopelessness which drives them. And I'm really sorry to say, the media also has, and the political climate, the media, they all have an impact. I am just asking this question, why are there no suicides before JEE? That's also an competitive exam, that's also an engineering professional exam, but it is not. Okay. Why it is that? Because the media has played a significant role. See, the media is like a double-edged weapon. Sensational portrayal of suicide can trigger copycat suicide in vulnerable, particularly young people. Phenomenon as the Werther phenomenon, and the second phenomenon as the Papageno syndrome, where a sensible portrayal of how a crisis is solved, of how a situation is handled without resorting to suicide, has reduced suicide.
Okay, madam. Then there is another question. There are some who commit suicide without giving any warning signs. How do you explain?
Not really, as I said,
Without any
80%.
warning signs.
That's what I'm saying. 80% of them give warning signs. It may be verbal, it may be behavioral, it may be cognitive. There are 20% who do not give warning signs, which are very, very difficult to pick up and prevent. But fortunately for us, 80% give warning signs. And even that we are not able to prevent. That is the sad story. There are 20% of the people who give no verbal signs or behavioral signs or any other sign. Okay? That is fortunately only about actually 15 to 18%.
Then another one interesting question. My brother used to play PUBG game for hours in a day. When we refused to give him his mobile, he has suicidal thoughts and tries to attempt suicide. How can we handle?
Absolutely. First, I think we have to monitor how much the children have in terms of these addictive video games. These addictive video games and violent video games has resulted in a lot of addictive behavior. It is this addictive behavior, which is like an addict. When you remove the alcohol, people get withdrawal reaction. Same way, your brother is experiencing withdrawal reaction from this addictive food. So we have to handle it like a withdrawal reaction and understand this. So even before this PUBG, I'm sure some of you, sometime back, we had this blue whale game. No? And one of the things at the end of it is to actually attempt suicide. Okay? And many of us, fortunately, the government took a stance and banned the game. Okay?
Yes.
And to counteract that, actually, Brazil and a few friends in Brazil, we started something called as the pink whale game. Each game is an affirmation. Today, you will go and tell this person, I care for you very much. Or you will give a rose to that person. But the pink whale game did not get as much currency as the blue whale game. You know? So, and not only this, forget about the PUBG. There is, I don't even want to say it because I don't want to give idea. There's something called as the dark net. The kind of things which goes on in the dark net is impossible. But I don't know how to get there, but these children know. And they are exposed to all kinds of violence there. Cyberbullying is extremely common. What we have found, particularly in this lockdown period, is 1/3 of the children are cyberbullied and 1/3 of the cyberbullied children are suicidal.
Yes, madam. See, we have seen some suicides being telecast live in social media. What is your comment about it?
It has to be completely stopped. In fact, Facebook has put a filter, and if anybody is live streaming it, it will stop. It has to be followed by other network sites also, but that is stopped now. It used to happen, but since last year, Facebook has, and in fact, even Google, if you look, if you type how to commit suicide, now has made the helplines will come first, not other things. But still, these children know how to go to the dark web, get a dark net, and get everything. Things because it started actually in Japan, what they call as cyber suicides. It is two people who don't know each other at all. Okay, they meet in the net and decide to. Used to be the favorite spot in Tokyo. So two of them will go there, total strangers, shake hands and then jump into the beach. So these cyber suicides became very, very, very. So there are filters which are good, but unfortunately there are a lot of holes also.
Okay, ma'am. Is there anything called rational suicide? Can you differentiate euthanasia and suicide?
Euthanasia is a situation where a physician, see there's a difference between euthanasia and assisted suicide. Euthanasia is a situation where a physician sees a person who is in terrible pain, terminal illness, feels that the person will not die, and administers. That is euthanasia. But many of the countries, actually, none of the physicians want to do it. They have something Belgium, Luxembourg, and all that, where euthanasia or assisted suicide is allowed. Okay, in fact, you have to have a lot of conditions for that. That is, you have to be certified by 2 psychiatrists that you do not have depression. You have to be certified by 2 medical practitioners. Having said this, interestingly, there is an organization I'm sure many of you have heard called Dignitas in Switzerland, which helps people with assisted living. So actually, when research was done in Dignitas, that is, you have to fulfill all these criteria, then you get admitted to the Dignitas Foundation, and then you have to be there for 2 weeks in case you want to change your mind, and then assisted suicide is helped. Research has shown that people who go through all these stages get into Dignitas, and 40 to 50% of them discharge themselves and go back before proceeding further. So even if you are terminally ill and if you are having severe pain and there is no treatment, and if 2 psychiatrists have said you don't have depression, even then you change your mind. As JCP said, I don't know whether he's there or whether he's called away for work. The fact is, many people, that ambivalence is what we cash in. When you give time, situations change, people's thinking change, the environment change. Let's take our own history of Chennai. We are all speaking English now because Robert Clive won the war over the French in Chennai. Okay. When Robert Clive came here, he had tuberculosis, he was a clerk, and he got a letter that his girlfriend in England has married somebody. So he decided to die by suicide. So he took a pistol and shot himself. Nothing happened. Second time he did it, nothing happened. Third time he did it, nothing happened. He got so vexed, he pointed the pistol out of the window and shot, and it fired. So he stopped back and said, why did it not fire when I tried 3 times? Check. Maybe God wants me to live. And then only he became Sir Robert. We have many instances in history where people, as he said, gone to the brink of suicide, have come back and are very, very successful now. In fact, there are many people here who are alive now, whom we are famous, who have given us a lot of happiness, who have gone to that stage and come back. I don't want to mention any names because confidentiality issues. But there are many.
Having high suicide rate among India.
Pardon me?
Though our Tamil Nadu GDP is much higher, more educated, but still Tamil Nadu ranks second in the number of suicides. What is the reason, madam?
India statistics. For the last 20, 30 years, we have found that the southern states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, all have Andhra Pradesh, all have higher than national average suicide rates. The middle states like Madhya Pradesh, Orissa have middle rates. The northernmost states like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, they have the lowest suicide rate. In fact, the suicide rate among the big states, the lowest suicide rates is found in Bihar. Okay. This pattern has been persistent for the last 20-25 years. We have tried to look at it in a variety of ways. One clear fact states the educational level is higher. Okay. Probably with increased education, there is an increase in expectation of what life should give you. And if your expectations are not met, suicides are likely to happen. Or if you want to look at it from a anthropological aspect, this peninsular India has never been attacked by forces from outside, like Punjab, Rajasthan, where Afghans, Persians, have attacked. So in the northern part, they are much more open with their emotions. So aggression is more murders, more those kind of things are more in the northern India. Here, we internalize aggression. Okay, Menninger called suicide as murder at the 180th degree. Wish to kill, wish to be killed, and wish to die. So it is what we call as introjected aggression, which causes suicide. So for a long time, we are more culturally internalize our aggression. Also probably at the end. The other factor could be that, how do I say that? There was a feeling that it was a better reporting system here than in the north. But that theory is ruled out now because even in the million death study or in the global burden of disease study, we find the same pattern, although the percentage of underreporting is higher in the north.
Question, Lakshmi madam, just want to ask you that although we believe that this is a myth, but many people whom we approach for awareness think that talking about suicide is like planting an idea in a person, and they don't want to talk to people about it and want to avoid the talk about suicide. Hence, we want to know how to deal with this.
It is a total myth. In fact, the WHO in the first World Health Suicide Report, which, as you rightly said, I was one of the 4 editors of that. The first thing we step towards suicide prevention is to ask the person. Research from around the world has shown that by asking whether a person is suicidal or not does not introduce that idea into the person. In fact, many suicidal people have a sense of relief when you ask the question because they know you're willing to talk about it. Okay? For a person who's suicidal, some of them may not be even verbalize it. It is confusing for them. It causes a lot of stress for them. So for a person to come and tell you, doctor or friend or whoever it is, I'm feeling suicidal, is very difficult. Whereas when you ask the question, for them to nod their head or say yes, it is much easier. So there is no scientific evidence at all that asking introduces that idea. We have vehemently said the first step towards suicide prevention is to ask.
Mr. Mohan, Youth International President, has congratulated us for coming together for this program. he has just mentioned, let us all together prevent suicide, especially children and students. Thank you, sir. This is a word of mine. Now I request Dr. Kishan, you got some comments about these things. Please, sir.
Before comment, Madam, I'm having a question from you. Not only this question, not only for suicide, how to decrease the stress. So this stress is leading to suicides. Stress also leading to other psychiatric morbidity. Role of silence, role of giving break in the profession, like holidaying. Some people are doing internet fasting, WhatsApp fasting. People are not getting a time for cognitive. There's a lot of cognitive overload. So, is there any studies, literature, and your experience, how to utilize this in a therapeutically? If so, not in the suicides, and at the same time, application of our old and ashrama siddhanta. There is no shrama in ashrama. The free food, free accommodation. There is no stress, and somebody will be guided, as a teacher or guru. Somebody will be there in the olden system. So, how to your comments about silence, oblique, break in the profession, and how to utilize this as a therapeutically, not only in preventing suicides and preventing psychiatric illnesses. Over to Madam, please.
We do have advantages, we do have labs, we have our meetings, we do have all the stress. So, if you feel it is important for a person, if the person feels that you're being stressed, then you have to see what is it that I can do to make myself more, what shall I say, more enthused, more, more some stress. One is every day have some physical activity. Okay. Something when you learn a little something new, read something which is totally different from your work. If you're a psychiatrist, start learning, say, Japanese or something like that, which has or music or whatever it is. So learning something new keeps you enthusiastic about life. Third thing is social activity. So if we have behavioral activity, mental activity, and social activity, which is not, social activity means, again, it is not related to your profession or anything. Do something which is different. Go and sit in the beach. As regarding your question about silence, I think it is a very philosophical question. How to silence your mind will help not only in suicide, but in a lot of mental health issues. Okay, it can help an obsessive, it can help a depressive, it can help even a schizophrenic also. So the fact is, over the years, philosophies all around the world have been trying to help human beings how to still your mind, how to bring calmness to your mind. And if you are able to achieve it, then definitely you will be calm. But I think in life, what is important is balance. Balance your work, balance your family, balance your activities, balance your emotions, balance your needs, balance your wants. Then you'll feel more balanced.
only one closing remark from my side. I've seen a lot of rehabilitation center, not only yesterday, Ramkrishnan's Atmalaya and newly ongoing project Mind and Shantivana, even in Hyderabad, rehabilitation centers, giving shelter to them who are in stress, already distressed souls, especially in rehabilitation of drug abuse and other rehabilitation, admitting them for 1 month, giving some physical activity and opportunity to expose them to social workers, opportunity to expose them occupational therapies, and giving a direction to their life, new techniques of coping mechanisms. These are all I've seen in Vijayawada Rehabilitation Center. So many cities I'm moving during this my tenure of Southern activity. So probably the future rehabilitation centers and young psychiatrists are also social workers, and so many persons are in the audience. There is a scope of service, the psychiatric services, especially in rehabilitation. That may be a wellness clinic, that may be a daycare center to care your needy persons. Maybe acute intervention, maybe supportive therapy, or maybe a planned behavioral therapy, or just giving a support system and exposing them to different specialists, a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, a social worker, a occupational therapist, a spiritual guide, different, maybe mindfulness technique, maybe relaxation technique, maybe some other techniques of relaxation. These are all probably, I think in the audience there are so many new, young, upcoming mental health professionals. Probably there is a lot of scope in the service activity in India. So we should have probably the service centers. Even Madam told, a lot of therapeutic applications, even decreasing psychiatric morbidity, avoiding the stress, and avoiding the acute problems to become chronic, preventing second, third episodes, increasing the prognosis. Can a psychiatrist can improve the prognosis? Can mental health system can improve the prognosis? Certainly, a mental psychiatrist, a social worker, at occupational therapist, these all systems certainly has to improve the prognosis of the existing illnesses. With this closing comment, I'm hand over to the organizers. Thank you very much, madam, for accepting to be chair of the Suicide Prevention Committee of South Zone, and you delivered a wonderful lecture and comprehensive, and your experience throughout the globe, and you are, I think, even whatever the wish of from the organizing committee, you are eligible for the Padma Shri or Padma Vibhushan. That is our wish. We don't know. We should pray for the God. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah.
Thank you for